It could happen tomorrow, the moment that changes the course of human events forever. The ultimate admission to the ultimate lie, the disclosure once and for all that we are not alone. Should such a day arrive, it will certainly herald a new dawn for humanity. Today, however, the debate rages on. Will such an event ever happen?
Paradigm Research Group once again calls upon the administration of President Barack Obama to engage the leadership of the military services and the national security structures to essentially work out the details to conduct a formal acknowledgement to the American people of the extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race.
The problem we have today is we also have other issues that affect all of us too, and immediately so. Wars, economies, famines, disease, and that's why our subject tends to be put on the back burner, because it doesn't have that feeling of immediacy yet. But when it does, it'll be a major story.
When I talk about disclosure, I talk about it with a small d, and I simply mean that the British government and others, the French, Canadians, Brazilians, and other countries as well, are literally declassifying and releasing their archive of UFO files. They are disclosing them. What there isn't in any of these files is what I call a spaceship in a hangar smoking gun. If there is such a document somewhere in a file, either in Britain or in another country, I haven't seen it.
There is another intelligence that's been interacting with humans for a long time. We can prove it in a variety of different ways. Tens of millions of people have seen it over the years in one form or another over the centuries throughout human history. On every continent, in every country, in every culture, in different guises, under different names, but it's there and it's real, and it has interacted with us at one level or another for a very long time. The evidence is overwhelming, I think, in other ways, too. Government documents, for example, U.S. government documents, Russian, Brazilian, British.
To the shock of many, many people, thousands of pages of documents relating to UFOs were released by many government agencies, the FBI, CIA, many of the defense agencies, released documents pertaining to UFOs that were requisitioned by UFO researchers from the National Archives. These were documents that were created back in the 50s and 60s with no expectation that they would ever see the light of day.
And what I am suggesting is it is now time to put away this embargo of truth about the alien presence. And I call upon our government to open up like other governments have, and you will hear about that this morning. Like the Belgians have, the French have, the Brazilians have, the Argentines, the Mexicans have all released their files. It's about time now that we do the same thing and become a part of this planetary community.
Disclosure with the UFO community is often written with a large D and is almost a political issue. It's a belief that there is an extraterrestrial presence, that the government absolutely does know about this and has known about it for more than 60 years. And the disclosure movement, lobby, whatever you want to call it, is gearing itself really for a fight with the government, with the authorities, to say, come on, it's time to release that material. My view is, well, it depends what you think there is to release.
When you talk about disclosure, disclose what? That aliens are real? I'm not sure anybody knows the true answer to this. Even though there might be a gigantic storehouse of information about UFO sightings, I'm not sure anyone really knows where they're from, why they're here, what they want. Those are the big questions. You know, we've been studying UFOs for 60 years, and I don't think we're one step closer to knowing the answer to any of the really central big questions.
For years and years, the U.S. government had said, well, we don't really study the UFO issue, we're not interested. Suddenly, that lie was exposed very clearly. A number of these documents are absolutely top-rate, fascinating documents. Now, I wouldn't say that any one of them by themselves would offer proof that UFOs are alien, let's say. However, when you take the top 10, top 20, they provide overwhelming evidence that A, the phenomenon is real, B, very serious, and C, of grave concern to military authorities. For instance, there's one that's very well known to researchers. Let's call it the 1947 Twining Memo. This was written by three-star general at the time, General Nathan Twining. He later went on to get 4 stars and become Chief of Staff of the Air Force. In 1947, he was responding to a request by another general who wanted to know, essentially, what was all this flying saucer business about? Are we making it? Are we not making it? Do I have to do anything about it? To which Twining wrote a multiple-page document saying, the reported phenomenon is real, not visionary or fictitious. And then he, incredibly, goes on to describe the nature of these objects as they were coming into the military personnel who were reporting them, including metallic, round on top, domed on top, flat on the bottom. Now, what is domed on top and flat on the bottom, especially in 1947? Silent or nearly so, very quiet, evasive maneuvers when sighted, and so forth. And so this is not evidence, but proof that in 1947, a top U.S. general is confirming the existence of this phenomenon. And you can just take it from there. Through the rest of the 40s, through the 50s and 60s, we've got dozens of excellent documents showing the scrambling of U.S. jet interceptors to intercept objects that were round or disc-shaped, hovering and hanging out over very sensitive U.S. military installations, including nuclear sites like Los Alamos and Oak Ridge and Hanford. You know, back in those days, you don't just go and fly over these restricted places. It was a big deal, and the base commanders were deeply concerned over this. And so we've got really scores of excellent documents relating to that. To me, that's more than sufficient to show that something's going on. It doesn't have to prove that it's alien, but guess what? What we find out is that all of the analysts back then asked all of the logical questions that we would ask. Top on the list is, top on the list is, were the Soviets making them? Are we making them? Or are they interplanetary? That was the big phrase that they were using. And inevitably, with all of these various studies that took place within the military, there was always a significant faction that said, well, they look interplanetary.
For me, there are 2 really important factors to overcome. The first is the ridicule factor. It is so virulent, it is so powerful, and it is so ingrained in post-war Western society. The fact that it has been the subject itself of UFOs and their implications have been so wonderfully stirred into a soup.
The fear of ridicule is the prominent concern from everybody. I check my audiences after my lecture. Flying saucers are real. How many people here believe they've seen what I would consider to be a flying saucer? Just raise your hand. We didn't let the CIA in, make a joke or two. And now they trust me because the lecture's flying saucers are real. And the hands go up. I'll just point and count. 1, 2, 3. The hands go up, reluctantly, but they trust me. By the time I get to that side of the hall, they go up rapidly. They suddenly realize they're not the only one. And typically it's 10% of the audience. So if you got 500 people, I've had audiences as big as 2,000. 500 people even, that's 50 sightings. But see, then I ask another question. How many of you reported what you saw? 90% of the hands come down.
I think the whole idea of disclosure is tenuous at best. And if the government doesn't know what it is that they're dealing with, how are they going to disclose that and admit that they don't know? It's not going to happen.
What I think needs to happen at this time is not disclosure per se, because I don't think there is much to disclose. What I think needs to happen is we need to make it okay, permissible, for serious scientists who want to explore these fields to do this without destroying their personal reputation. or destroying their livelihood because if you dabble in these things, we're not going to allow you to have a job in other areas.
In 1953, the CIA convened what's called the Robertson Panel, and they discussed it. And they talked about, look, let's look at these UFO cases. You know, we don't think that UFOs represent a threat to national security, but the continued reporting about UFOs is a threat. Therefore, let's institute a program to strip UFOs of their aura of mystery. And that's why they talked about debunking the laughter curtain, the ridicule factor. And whether or not that program was ever instituted or not, it's in effect what's happened, because people do laugh at people who report UFOs. 9 out of every 10 persons who sees a UFO or has some experience like that doesn't report it at all. And the fear factor is a major part of that. But if we are waiting for a day when our government comes forward and says aliens are real, they're here, we're going to be waiting a long time. In my opinion, that day will never happen.
I have been convinced for years that it's this great paradox. It's an impossibility for the powers that be to want to disclose this, and I've never seen motivation on their part to do it. However, it's going to happen anyway. It's like trying to hold back a tidal wave.
Why hasn't official acknowledgement occurred? Is there truly nothing to disclose? Or is the truth so shocking that no easy way to inform us has presented itself? Has there actually been, as many seem to believe, an intricate international truth embargo?